I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Williams, roll call, please.
Thank you. Mr. Lyons? Mr. Lyons? Mrs. Misbach?
Here.
Mr. Kashani?
Here.
Dr. Campbell?
Here.
Mr. DiTullio? Mr. DiTullio?
He just joined. He's just joined.
Mr. DiTullio? Are you here?
He's muted.
Well, he's muted.
Here.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Dr. Mihalik?
Here.
Dr. Meyer?
Here.
Mr. Moy?
Here.
Mrs. Swope?
Here.
Thank you. Just as a reminder for tonight, you need to use your mic when you're speaking for everybody to hear on the live stream. Thank you.
So I'd like to recognize a moment of silence. Please join me in a moment of silence in memory of retired Pine-Richland Superintendent Stephen J. Storkel. Dr. Storkel's exemplary career as an educator included serving as a math and science teacher and principal at Evanston Township High School in Illinois. He served as superintendent at Evergreen Park High School, also in Illinois, and later became superintendent of Pine-Richland Schools. He had a strong commitment to his family, neighbors, teachers, students, and the community in which he lived. If we just pause for a moment, please. Thank you. I'd like to announce the board did meet an executive session prior to the planning meeting to discuss negotiations and personnel. Before I hand over item 1.02 to Dr. Miller, I just wanted to say a few words in relation to that. I would like to make a few comments. This plan is going through a process to evaluate the most appropriate education model that we can deliver safely, effectively, and flexibly for students, staff, and the community. The plan has evolved over time in response to mandates, data, and information from the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, Governor Wolf and the Pennsylvania Department of Health, the PDE, Pennsylvania Department of Education, Allegheny County Department of Health, parent and staff surveys and feedback, and the PRSD Healthcare Leadership Council, which is made up of administration, staff members, school board member, which I'm on the council as that member, students, and community healthcare experts. And these experts have firsthand experience with COVID-19 doing research, contact tracing, administrative oversight, or direct treatment of patients with the virus. The council has met twice a month since June to review and give valuable input and recommendations to the plan, and will continue meeting to inform the plan. The plan we have before us tonight will by no means remain unchanged after this evening, but evolve as a response to the fluid situation, data, and feedback that we receive. I have confidence in this process, and I have the greatest confidence as well in the administration, the staff, and the board as everyone works collaboratively, knowledgeably, thoughtfully, and even carefully through the process to provide the safest method of return to instruction for each student, each staff member, and consider as well the health of the community. Thank you. Dr. Miller?
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Misbach. So, as superintendent, I can assure all of our staff members in the community how much of the responsibility I feel of leadership for our students and their safety, for our staff and their health and well-being, and for our community. It is a challenging time for our country. It's a challenging time for our state. It's a challenging time for school districts as we weigh decisions and plans for the upcoming school year. Across our country, conditions differ. In our region, schools talk about approaches sometimes using the same language. For example, hybrid. But the reality is a hybrid at Pine-Richland is proposed and shared through our podcast, and hybrids in other locations have different looks, they have different designs, they have different purposes. And so what I'd like to do tonight here at the start of the meeting is provide some clarifying comments and information about our process and planning and some of the key points. Dr. Pasquinelli and Dr. Justice will also describe more clearly the model themselves and what that would look like in a school. There's a lot of misconceptions about what a school classroom would look like or feel like, and so we want to be able to articulate that clearly. And we've even used this board setting to create a space with the dimensions similar to a classroom in a school in order to literally show what does that look like, how would students be spaced, what are the dimensions of that room, what technology and tools would be available. So Dr. P will share that in a little bit as we get to that point. So the first, as Mrs. Misbeck said, this has been a process with 43 members representing many, many people. And so through surveys and through phone conversations and through emails, we have input. That input, along with our research and study, leads to planning, and we have continued to refine those plans. Where we are today, where we were a month ago, 2 months ago, different places. And what that tells us is a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, we can fully expect to be in different places again as we continue to learn and understand. In our podcast, we describe that as change being a constant. And so we have to be open, we have to be patient and flexible in order to discern the right decisions in the right timeline, supported by the right training, actions, and communications. And that's something that we have been committed to and we will continue to commit to. I have thanked in the podcast, and I will thank again, the members of our Healthcare Leadership Council. They are a diverse group representing our entire workforce. They also include 12 members of our community who are medical experts in healthcare fields, industries, and positions relating to infectious disease and all sorts of health practices. They have been active and engaged in each step of the process in order to provide us with feedback, thoughts for consideration, suggestions for planning to incorporate, and they are active practitioners in the field. They're working specifically around COVID-19, and they're sharing their up-to-date learnings with us, and so their voice and expertise is active in what we have here. In Allegheny County, the superintendents of Allegheny County, there are 42 school districts plus Pittsburgh Public School District, so 43, we meet sometimes twice a week, usually at least once a week. And on those calls, we have representatives of the Allegheny County Health Department. And so Dr. Bogan, the director, has been on many of those calls, and her chief epidemiologist, Dr. Brink, has been on those calls with the AIU superintendents. We understand that while each school district has unique characteristics, we're all in the same region, in the same sector, and so we want to be operating by similar information and understandings. And so as of Thursday of last week, which was July 30th, based on conditions in Allegheny County, Dr. Bogan again suggested that a hybrid model of approach to the school year was appropriate, that this was the right place to be in terms of recommendations. Again, that was as of last Thursday, July 30th. Allegheny County Health Department has a limited number of people like every other agency, and they're working hard. And so their minds now are fully focused on schools. They've been managing businesses and restaurants and many, many other aspects of life. And so they are focused on education and have committed their time and expertise to us. In our process, every potential option has advantages and disadvantages. And there is no perfect. And so what we have arrived at in terms of a recommendation is an approach that maximizes health and safety by providing for some of the most critical elements to mitigate the spread and transmission of disease. So specifically, that is physical distancing. And as Dr. Pasquinelli will share, based on what we've proposed, we would be bringing about 40% or so of our students physically into the building on any given day. And again, different models for different levels. But that permits a physical distancing in the classroom space, such as you see here. So you see members of our staff and administration present tonight, seated 6 feet apart, and we'll demonstrate what that classroom array would look like. But again, when schools mention or you hear hybrid, you don't necessarily understand what that means. So physical distancing, critical. Face coverings are critical. The experts, they cannot 100% prevent, but the experts are very clear, the scientists, that face masks and face coverings are supportive. Face shields are an option. There are benefits and advantages and disadvantages of different types of coverings, but face masks are recommended as the best proactive strategy to reduce risk for self and others. And then really the fundamentals of hygiene. So keeping hands clean and demonstrating good fundamentals of practice in life. And that's not just life within the walls of the school, but that's really in the community. Again, the reality of COVID-19 is it is here. It is in our community. It will remain in our community. It will be augmented, likely, by the seasonal flu and other things that typically happen. And these are not bywords. I'm parroting the words of the experts that we have contributing to our Healthcare Leadership Council. So again, the 3 critical pieces of physical distancing, and that's possible through the reduced number of students in this hybrid approach, face coverings, and then sort of those fundamentals of hand washing. This is a dynamic process. So as Mrs. Misbach shared in her opening comments, every day there is learning, but we have the responsibility to plan for the start of the school year. So at this time, we have a plan that's built on everything we know to date. And we have worked through that. We have communicated that as specifically as we can. There are questions. We'll try to answer some that occur. But change is a constant and patience is key. So that continuum that we've talked about, one end of the continuum is a fully virtual, 100% remote learning from home, similar to what happened in the spring of 2020. The how, if we were to be in that position again, would be very different. So how we would organize our staff, the tools and resources that we would utilize, how we would structure the day, curriculum instruction and assessment, there's a whole lot that would be different, but that's one end of the continuum. We are just inside that end of the continuum with the model that we're presenting here. So it's a model that is designed to maximize health and safety by meeting those requirements. We don't want to talk, we don't intend to talk too much tonight about the 100% virtual model, other than to say planning for that model continues. And so we are planning the details on what is being proposed tonight, and as a contingency, we are planning the details of what that 100% would look like. And so we do that through daily intense effort of many, many people in order to work out and plan for all of the details. By doing that, we afford ourselves the opportunity to be flexible and nimble and be able to adjust if conditions change or warrant. So again, important to understand. We recommended a time frame from the end of this, from the start of school through the end of September. Some districts are communicating first 9 weeks. We felt like in a situation that day by day there's new learning, trying to forecast 9 weeks seems too far away. And when you add the month that we have, or 3 weeks before school, we're talking about 3 months. Think about where we were 3 months ago, think about where we are now, and we felt that that was a little too long. So what we're recommending is a tighter window of selection. And so this means that parents, if the board approves the recommendation this evening, a survey would go out, and it would gather additional data for parents to select. That's critical because it informs the way we staff and communicate and work and organize and provide opportunities for staff members and people to deal with things. And so, but, as Mrs. Misbach also said, next Monday, there's a board meeting. The Monday following that, there's a board meeting. And we will continue to work and bring forward the best thinking to our community, to the board, to again, support our students, staff, and families. But parents, would have the ability to select something different if, depending on how things happen. So we wanted to create a tighter window of decision-making for the start of the year. It's also possible that we will recommend a slight delay or shift in the first day of school for students. And so the reasoning behind that would be to provide a little bit of extra planning time in order to work through the details. So again, it's a little premature today, but we are thinking about the potential recommendation to shift the first student day just a little bit in order to provide a little bit more time to handle the details, because people are anxious. Parents are anxious, staff are anxious, and this unknown lives in us. It weighs on us. And so in order to provide time for planning, details, communication, that may be something that we bring forward as a recommendation. COVID-19 is in the community. Seasonal flu is coming. Allegheny County Health Department experts, director and chief epidemiologists are with us often, with us, the county superintendents, talking to us. One of the realities that we hear and know is that decisions outside of the school walls will impact the reality inside schools and vice versa. And so we do receive reports about things happening in different areas of the community that may be more risk behavior relative to physical distancing, face coverings, and some of the hygiene-related behaviors. And we are fortunate to live in a community and place where we all have choices. But to the extent that we can urgently ask for support in our community with our families and businesses and others to help us increase the quality of the environment through attention to those precautions, we ask. We urge and we hope that together we can do that in order to best focus on learning for students and provide a place to do that. Again, that's good for kids, certainly good for staff and families. Testing comes up as a question. And the experts at Allegheny County and others express concern with the availability and, even more importantly, the time lag that occurs between testing and results and the impact that has on planning. Contact tracing is managed through a case manager at Allegheny County assigned when a confirmed case exists in order to identify close contacts. Close contacts being those who are within 6 feet for a period of 15 minutes is how that's defined in the county and elsewhere. And so Allegheny County Health Department officials would be working with us, as they have, and working with other school districts in Allegheny County in order to provide guidance and recommendation based on conditions. So at this point, there is not a magic number that we're aware of or a clear and bright metric line that we can utilize, but they do monitor things like confirmed cases, like positivity rate, and understanding the degree of spread in the community and what that looks like. And again, as of last Thursday, based upon those conditions here, they still support a hybrid model of opening schools. Again, that's as of last Thursday. Again, I said before, it's August 3rd, and we can feel, when you turn the corner into August, you sort of feel school coming. And we feel that, I think, especially so this year and right now. But we also have time to continue to learn, understand, monitor, prepare, and then be able to be flexible in decision-making. So that's an update. That does, what I've mentioned tonight, does address, we receive many questions at different levels of detail. I would say a good dozen of the frequently asked questions I've addressed in the summary of key points and the information I shared here tonight. Some other elements may get answered when Dr. Justice describes, again, some of the model, and then what Dr. Pasquinelli will be able to do is literally come up here in the front of this room as a sort of a demonstration classroom in order to more fully show what that might look or feel like in a school. Dr. Justice? And I think,
Yes.
hold on one second. I think we're going to, if we could pull up the slides. Who's running the? Okay, Mr. Stobener, who is working from a remote location. So, Mr. Stobener, I think it's slide 11. Let's get there and see what that looks like. Keep going. It's the first one that has the red, yellow, and green. Actually, it's the slide before that. So I'll right there for a second. Models. Okay. So again, in the podcast, and what we see here is really what led to the model selection. So in addition to physical distancing in the classroom, the other advantage of if you will, 40% or so of students who will be coming in, is it helps with all the other areas as well. Bus, we've had a tremendous response of parents who will help drive their children to school to further reduce that impact on the school. Again, cafeterias, there are requirements for 6 feet, and so we have plans at each and every school. Mrs. Bucknam, the manager for Sodexo, has worked with building principals at all 6 schools in order to very specifically identify procedures in order to support the cafeteria. And then any reduction in students in a building positively impacts hallways and other areas that exist within the school. So that is the model selection. And then if you can go to the next slide, Sean, Dr. Justice will talk about maybe the next 3 slides.
Yeah, so thank you. At a very high level, when we were going through the potential models and evaluating them, we knew that we were thinking of kind of 3 buckets, if you will, of students and where they would be. And so I'm going to explain this schematic because we will refer back to the colors even as we're going through the other models to connect how that has worked. So in evaluating them, we knew that there are some families who would prefer not to have their child come in initially and would really prefer to have that virtual only model. So that is the yellow group that you see on the left side of the slide. We also know that we have 70% of our families currently who are interested in sending their children in person. So in the green, we have represented the traditional in-person model. And at any given time, we knew that there would also be students in what you see as the blue, where they're coming into the classroom from home. They're planned, they wish they were in person, that is what they would prefer to be doing, but for one reason or another, whether it be routine illness, actually contracting something like COVID-19, or being quarantined due to someone else that was close contact of theirs, contracting COVID-19. So we knew that there'd be an ebb and flow between the group in green and the group in blue. So initially that was kind of the base that we started with as we were thinking, and then from there the further models developed. And as Dr. Miller just highlighted on the prior slide, we really gave a lot of thought into the grade spans and the developmental needs of each of the students. So we're going to look at this as a K3, 4-6, and 7-12 model so that we can actually understand why those key drivers were thought of the way they were for each population and how it came to fruition. So if you want Mr. Stover to go to the next slide, we'll speak to K3. So as we mentioned, the yellow group of students would be virtually learning every day. We did hear from our stakeholder groups, so that would be from the parent surveys that we had. We also had engaged with families on phone calls and email exchanges, etc., that there was a preference that at that age group, given the developmental needs, that they have a dedicated teacher who is virtual only with no in-class responsibilities to teach those students directly. So we have designed a model where the students and families who sign up for that section, we will then, if you picture all of the second grade teachers in a building, for instance, one of those teachers would be removed from the in-person teaching responsibilities, and they would be assigned to a virtual classroom of students who they would be interacting with every day. So that is kind of the yellow bucket of students. If you then look at the green, you'll see the families that would prefer to be every day. So at K-3, what we know are 2 things. One, having students at that age group trying to log on online and work through things. It's not always done independently, and requires some adult attention. So at times there might not be a family that would be able to support that at that level through the home. So we know that could be of assistance to make that support available to have direct instruction each day for students. Second, and most important in terms of the health and wellness drivers, students under age 10 are not transmitters of COVID-19 to the degree that adults would be. And students who are age 10 and over are seen as transmitters in the same way that that adult group is. So we know that bringing the students in proposes less of a risk. Plus, we know that we already have the students seated 6 feet apart. We have them masked. We're taking all of those other precautions into consideration to make it the safest environment possible. So families could choose to send their child every day K-3. Alternatively, the third choice would be to have the child attend on an A-B schedule. So on an A day, they would be in person. B days, they would be at home, or vice versa. And when they're not in the room, they would be connecting through Google Meet at that grade span. And so it would be bringing the student into the classroom through the virtual means. So whether it be the technology that they have at home or a Chromebook that they have gotten from us or some another laptop device, they'd be able to join into the classroom, see the presentation that the teacher is presenting, similar to what we're experiencing right this moment with Mr. Stover presenting this presentation to everyone, and being able to see the speaker talking. So we've worked through iterations of that, and we've gone through pilots, and what Dr. P will share with you this evening will be a little window into that world. So you'll see that then that takes the whole student population that we would normally have. We've removed some of the students and put them into virtual only. We then have our 70% of kids that would prefer to be in person, but now those kids, we've removed some because they're either out for routine illness or quarantine, and then we've taken the population and divided in half between the A and B days, where they would be coming in to school on one of the days and working from home on the others. And that would be Monday's an A day, Tuesday's a B day, Wednesday's an A day, Thursday's a B day, Friday is an A day, Monday is a B day. So it would just circle through that exact rhythm. And if we have a day that we're not in school or it's an in-service day, et cetera, we would skip it and continue on. So it would continue to keep that A-B sequence even. So that is what K6 ends up looking like. The highlights here are that for, K3. K3 would be able to come in person. If they so choose, they have the A-B day schedule, where it's kind of a hybrid between the two, or they're virtually taught by a designated virtual teacher. So those are the key components there. And then as we move into 4 to 6, you will notice that the everyday option in person falls away because of the age of those students. So we know that they are possibly 10 or older, as well as a little bit better adept at maneuvering things online as they would attend virtually. So they may select 2 options, one of 2, to attend the A-B day schedule, where they're either in person or they're at home. The lessons would be continuing, the teacher's teaching the same thing that they normally would. Half of the students would be in front of them and half of them at home. So you can see in both of those scenarios that we're talking 6 to 8 or 8 to 10 kids, depending on which grade span. We also have the 100% virtual teacher, again, dedicated virtual teacher. So if you think of Eden Hall, most of our teachers, not all, but most, follow into a social studies ELA and a math science kind of designation. The students that would be assigned to those teachers in a virtual setting, those teachers would only be teaching the students in the virtual setting. They would not have in-person students if they were to select the virtual only model. And again, you can see that with the ebb and flow of, there might be some students out for routine illness or quarantine, and then others who are planned to be either home or at school based on how that span follows. We can look at 7 through 12 then, and Dr. P will be able to outline what that looks like for students at the secondary level.
Okay, so yeah, the image that you see on the screen now is the image that we've designed for middle school and high school. And I'd say that the key driver that makes this difference for secondary is really around the nature of a secondary learner. So greater level of independence in terms of learning. And then when you think about the high school program of studies, you really have to think about the complexity of that schedule and how that's really built around an individual student's interests and needs. So with that complexity, this model allows us to support both the complexity of the schedule and the health, safety, flexibility, and learning opportunities for our students. So for secondary students, there are two options. The one option is similar to the other ones. We're coming in every other day, so an A-day, B-day. And the second option is a virtual every single day. The difference really in the secondary program is around the delivery of that virtual instruction. If a student is staying home virtually or in the blue, meaning they're out for some period of time for some reason, or they're on their opposite A or B, then they are logging in at home and they are seeing the classroom, they're participating as they would at school. So for a secondary student, if I'm at home on a B day, it's 8 o'clock, it's time for period 1, I'm logging in and participating with my teacher and my classmates from home. If I'm a student that's coming into school, then I'm coming in, I'm following the same schedule that I would when I am physically not in school. The same reductions that Dr. Justice talked about with the K-6 models, they apply for secondary as well. So with those reductions of percentages of students that are staying home, 100% students that will be home on the opposite day of A-day, B-day, and then your standard sicknesses along with, possible quarantines and other things, we're anticipating about 7 to 10 students in a classroom per day. So that allows us to really get into the social distancing. So with that, maybe I'll show you what we're talking about. I have the voice amplification system on as well. So this will hopefully help people at home here. I'll pull this down a little bit so you can hear me better. So what we've done is we basically have laid out the size of a high school classroom. So from where Mr. Campbell is seated, that would be basically one side of the classroom. And then to where Mrs. Williams is seated, that is the other side of the classroom. Where I'm standing would be really the teacher area, the teacher station. So the board that you guys in the room see would literally be positioned about here. So the interactive display board is here. I'm acting as the classroom teacher. This school board and community has supported these amplification systems. That was a $250,000 purchase. That will make a difference. Even talking through this mask, that allows those in the back corner of the room to hear as well. So as a teacher, again, teachers like to move around. With this model, and the difference is we're confined. So this space here, and then my nearest student here, Ms. Hathorn, is more than 6 feet away from me. I have a mask, she has a mask, and then her classmates have masks as well. Interactive display board is here. I have my lesson projected here, and I have my laptop so I can see what's projected. The students in the classroom can see what's projected, and the students at home can see what's projected on the interactive display board. Mounted to the interactive display board is a web camera. That camera is pointing here, so the students at home can see me and my lesson, and the students in my class can see me and my lesson. So again, that allows us that flexibility of going home to school and having a very similar experience. We've tested this. So for example, if Dr. Paxson asks a question, that question is posed, the web camera also has a built-in microphone that the students at home can hear the question that she's posing, and they can respond as well. If a student at home has a question, we have chat features, we have opportunities to get the teacher's attention so the students at home can interact with the students in school and the teacher as well. So if you get an idea of how much we have spread the students out in this class, and again, we're anticipating 7 to 10. We have 2, 4, 6, 8. We have 9 people here right now. So there could be opportunity to spread our students that are physically in the classroom even more. So we really believe that with the models that we showed for K through 12, where there will be in-class instruction and virtual happening at the same time, that really adds to the consistency of learning experiences for the students. The other reality for secondary is if we would be in an environment, let's say we are full virtual, and then we are going to orient back into this hybrid, it's going to be seamless for the students because at home they would be following along with that same schedule. Or if the reverse happens, if we're able to start out hybrid as we're proposing, but have to move into 100% virtual, will be able to seamlessly go from the hybrid model into the virtual at home model, and the students would be following that same schedule every day. We have to think about the experience for the teacher and the students in terms of the home learner. So a combination of synchronous and asynchronous is appropriate, so a student is not staring at a computer screen all day long. So we're thinking about that in terms of our learning experiences, but those are all things that are going into the design. So interactive display board, video coming down on the teacher, students spread out, social distance with mask, teacher with mask, teacher's kind of in his or her teaching space, staying in close proximity to the camera so the students at home can see it, and then the ability to interact with those in the classroom and those at home.
Mr. Stovener, if you could go to the next slide. So this is, again, in the podcast. Dr. Pasquinelli just demonstrated this in the boardroom. But as, I think, an example of how school districts, even in the same county, have different opportunities relative to hybrid learning. 7 years ago, we could not have contemplated, with our technology infrastructure, anything close to this. But over that time period, through commitment, everything from the MDFs to the IDFs to the wired environment to the connection to the RWAN and everything about our wired environment was rebuilt through significant investment. The wireless environment has been rebuilt and will continue to get strengthened with additional hotspots. Every one of those interactive display boards, which have significant functionality, have replaced over a period of years what were originally the old Promethean boards connected to the Classrooms for the Future grant process. And so, as Dr. P said, the voice amplification, when it comes to the teacher, I mean, we're thinking about the teacher voice relative to instruction with in this environment, and we're thinking about the students being able to clearly hear and understand and be a part of that instruction. And so these are fortunate investments in infrastructure that we're able to consider and rely on as we look at a hybrid model. Chromebooks, we have a purchase of Chromebooks that are arriving. Mr. Stobener has, again, utilized survey data and his inventory to believe that we can distribute Chromebooks to almost every student, K-8, and some high school students who need them, plus utilize some other technology. So although, again, not a, quote, one-to-one, one device to one student school district, we believe we have the inventory in order to ensure equity in experiences and access across our families, which is a huge positive in terms of the way that we're approaching this. The reality of the future, and future is tomorrow and next month and 6 months from now, is that we are all learning a different set of habits, behaviors, routines, procedures. It's different. It will be different. No matter what happens, it will be different. And so what will occur with our planning, so when I mentioned the possibility of shifting back a little bit the start of school for students in order to provide some additional time to be prepared, you know, when something feels new, it doesn't feel natural. With repetition and practice, it becomes a routine. And so what our staff need the confidence in through our support and help and training and practice are some of those health and safety precautions and what they will look like in the school day. At the same time, we have instruction. So how do I manage being in this place, having this tool and resource, connecting in ways that are different? There is zero expectation of perfection as we get started with this. We have to be patient and flexible. We want people to be comfortable, to be willing to try, to be to learn. And what we saw in the spring from our staff was nothing short of incredible. It was people digging in, working to find out what's effective with kids, sharing best practices between and across grade levels and content areas, and then applying those improvements to be effective for learning. Whatever happens in the future, that idea of learning, feeling supported, it's okay to not get it exactly right, and we all have to collectively be patient with that, is what this culture can support. And so then, day 1 and 2, it's really about feeling the space and getting comfortable. Day 1 and 2, A and B, and then the next A and B aren't going to be about deep learning. They're going to be about the procedures, the routines, the relationships, the feeling of what it means to be in school in the fall of 2020. And as we said earlier, we have to be open to flexibility and adaptation if conditions change. So we designed all of this, and I forgot something Dr. P is going to mention, but we designed a lot of this to be able to more clearly illustrate what it would look like and then respond to a lot of the questions that we've been receiving from different stakeholders. Mike?
Just Sean, if you could go to the next slide, just want to mention, Mr. Huswood doesn't have his microphone, so I'll take this one, but we've also considered students, with special needs in this model design. So we understand that there are some students with very specific program needs and academic, social, emotional needs that we want to consider. So you see within this model for students in special education or in Tier 3, which are highly intensive intervention programs, that opportunity, so that third selection, similar to the K-3 environment, is available for students. This will be handled on a case-by-case, student-by-student basis, but you see that every day is an opportunity, if necessary, the A-Day, B-Day, and of course the 100% virtual. So just wanted to make sure you heard that and saw that as well.
There have also been some questions, if I could just hop in once again, regarding, well, if we select one of these models as they have been proposed, what happens if later on I decide I want to switch to another model? So I think we need to keep in mind that flexibility for students and staff was our third key driver, and yet at the same time we're balancing the need to design the programming for this year. So if we think about the elementary level, for instance, where we have virtual only students who have a dedicated teacher, that teacher or teachers have been taken out of what would be the normal homeroom placement. So they're kind of counted towards the other components, and in order to remain at the class size levels where we can keep the 6 feet of distance and those health parameters in place, we have to be mindful of that. So flexibility is still a piece of it. We're hopeful to be able to respond if needs should arise like that, but we are building everything from the get-go based on the data that we get this week. Again, assuming that this model and the discussions and things that we have this evening are approved. So wanted to throw that out there, that we will work with families. It would be something that would need to be brought to the attention of the building level and then carefully thought through given the several factors that are present in that decision. But the intent and spirit of it is to be as flexible as we can for the foreseeable future.
Okay, very good. So item 1.03 is recognition of visitors. Ms. Williams, is our Eagle Scout here with us tonight remotely?
I've not seen his name,
Okay.
but I certainly, if he is here, I hope he's learned a lot tonight.
Okay. So I'd like to note that PR student Joshua Remba may be joining us remotely this evening as part of earning his Eagle Scout badge. And this time is now for any member of the PR community may address the board. All speakers should clearly state their name and address. And as a reminder, visitors are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes. Board members listen to comments from the public, and this is generally not a time when discussion or response takes place with the board of directors. Where specific questions are asked, the administration or board may follow up outside the meeting to address them. If you need to, you can contact the board secretary at boardsecretary@pinerichland.org with any questions. Ms. Williams, do we have any?
We do. We have 2 speakers who'd like to speak at the beginning. The first one is Lara Atasi. So, Mr. Stoberner, if you can dial her up, that would be great. Thank you.
is not available. At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Okay,
Barb, you will have to remove the person from the call.
okay. I can tell you 1 second. Sorry.
If you are satisfied with your message, press 1 to listen to your message. Press 2 to erase and re-record. Press 3 to continue recording where you left off. Press 4.
Mr. Stovner, does it end with 16, the number?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Are you still there? If you are satisfied with your message,
Okay, there we go. Okay, so we'll go on to the second caller, Kelly Nayick.
hello?
Hello, Mrs. Nayick?
Yes.
Hi, you're speaking to the Pine-Richland School Board, so you're welcome to go ahead.
The one question that I have is that around masks, I noticed that when the podcast was starting that Dr. Miller didn't have his mask on and he since put it on. And when you talked, he had taken his mask off. Is that the model that the teachers are going to be using, that the kids are going to be using, or how is the masking policy going to work in that regard?
So I'm not sure if, this is Christine Misbeck, the board vice president. So what was stated was that we don't answer any questions directly, that any specific question that you have either the administration or a board member would get back to you. So we appreciate your input, unless, do you have anything else for us? And someone will get back to you, but do you have any other input at all?
No, I just was wondering how the modeling will work. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I believe that is the last one until the end. Everybody else has indicated they'd like to speak at the end.
Okay, thank you. Item 1.04 is correspondence. Ms. Williams?
Jennifer Casey and Jolie Carnahan emailed the board regarding return to school.
Item 1.05 is a motion to approve the meeting minutes as attached.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 2.01 is a motion to approve the collective bargaining agreement between the Pine-Richland School District and the Pine-Richland Education Support Association, effective July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2025, as attached.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. We wanted to do a voice vote on this one. Ms. Williams?
Okay. Mr. DiTullio?
Yes.
Mr. Moy?
Yes.
Mrs. Misbach?
Yes.
Dr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Kashani?
Yes.
Dr. Meyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Swope?
Yes.
Dr. Mihalik?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Do you mind if I share a couple comments?
Oh,
So
sure.
again,
I'm
we
sorry, go
just,
ahead.
on behalf of the district, we are so pleased to be able to ratify contract with our support professionals. The team that represented ESPA throughout the process, again, tremendous. We appreciate their willingness to engage in candid, healthy, productive conversation. We had representative of the boards on the team, and again, we thank you for the time and service and commitment to understanding our employee groups and what's important to them. It is a huge positive to be able to ratify a contract with any group in an organization and school, and so we are just so pleased for all involved. Mr. Kenny is excellent. I mean, he is nothing short of a role model when it comes to strengthening relationships, identifying clearly issues of importance to groups of people and to the district, and helping to find, through, again, candid, honest discussion, a contract that works for everybody. So, you know, I just cannot thank the team enough. Behind that, Mrs. Kirk does, you know, provides all the tools and information to allow decision-making and discussion to happen. So on behalf of the district, we're super happy for our support professionals, and we're really appreciative of the teamwork that goes into that. So thank you to all.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and this is Greg Vitulio. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone as well. And I don't want to leave anyone out, but I do want to reiterate what Dr. Miller said. Working with Owen, I've had the privilege of working through several negotiations with Owen. His organization, his planning, the way that he presents everything to both sides has been just absolutely phenomenal. I miss working with him for that, but it was an honor to do it, and the way we got through this one was exemplary, and the way that he took care of the process was exceptional. So thank you to all, but just a special thank you to Owen.
Second. Item 2.02 is a motion to approve the PRSD Health and Safety Plan educational model as presented.
Second.
Thank you. We wanted to do, any discussion? I'm sorry.
I'll just add a couple of details, and then we'll respond to any questions the board might have. So I appreciated the parent comment or question regarding role model behavior. And it's so important to articulate that, and as the board and staff knows, I demonstrate that behavior on a daily basis. I did talk with Mr. Kashani, who is so physically distanced to my left, and to Mrs. Misbeck, who's physically distanced to my right, and no one is even close in the front. Given the importance of the topic, I wanted to make sure there was absolutely no barrier to understanding or articulation of my voice and going over that. So, but in terms of responding, the expectation is face coverings are worn, and the reason we purchased those voice amplification systems is to improve the quality of speech and listening wearing that. In addition to the educational model which we reviewed, the health and safety plan is also attached here and part of this. And so just like the educational model, there are a ton of details in the health and safety plan, far more than we discussed in the podcast. And so they are a work in progress. So they're dated because they reflect our best thinking to date, but they change almost every day as they're updated with new research and information about our approach to school. So I just wanted to make sure we made mention of that as well.
Right, and I'd also like to say that being on the Healthcare Leadership Council and speaking with some of the healthcare experts, they did stress the use of face masks, and even in the workplace that they use them, that they, one of the experts was at Children's Hospital, and they have not had an outbreak out there, and everyone uses their masks. And it does, as it says, you know, your face mask protects me, mine protects you, but it also can protect yourself to a certain extent. So it's really valuable for all of us to follow that if the science goes with it. So just wanted to stress that.
I'd like to express my thanks for how well Dr. Miller and his team listened to stakeholders throughout this entire process. We'd be hard pressed to find a privately held business that listens to their customers as well as they have. And it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, but there is a choice for everybody in the solution. And I appreciate that. And so thank you for that. I'm happy to support this recommendation.
So I too want to thank the administration and all the effort that went into putting this together. There's a lot in here. There's a lot of thought went into it, a lot of expertise, and want to say thank you for that. There are a couple of things that I think can help. First, I want to thank all the people who have written to communicate with us. We've gotten a lot of letters on this issue. One of the things that is reiterated is not so much issues with the model itself. It's in the conditions under which the model gets activated. And I think it would be helpful to, maybe not tonight, but since we're going through different iterations, be a little bit clearer about the reasoning of how we go down different paths. What do I mean by that? So we are the beneficiary of having a really excellent healthcare committee that is helping. But their reasoning and a lot of their information, we don't have access to all of it, the full depth and array of that. It gets distilled, which is a necessary thing, but at the same time, some of those nuances can be very helpful. And I think the anxiety specifically is geared around the rate at which we have this disease in the community and making decisions about protectiveness on what those are. So for example, so what would be helpful is the reasoning that is shared from the health department and from the committee as compared with the information that is generally publicly available. What is generally publicly available are guidelines from the CDC. The guidelines from the CDC recommend that schools should open if there's a very low rate of disease in the community. And they define low as 10 incidents per 100,000 people. Okay, they define a moderate level of disease at 50 per 100,000 people. Our county is currently operating at about 85 or 86 per 100,000 people. So there's a difference there from what is publicly available and what is being recommended. So if there can be some sharing of reasons why it's okay to proceed with that difference in national CDC consensus guidelines and what our county is deciding to do. A second thing has to do with the testing rate. So the testing rate that is recommended by the CDC is for the positivity rate is 3%. Okay, there's a lot of misconception about what that means in the community. My understanding of it is that you want to test enough people so that that rate is about 3%. That way you're not missing the potential spread and growth of the disease. Well, our rate, positivity rate in the county is 6-point-something%, which is about double. That might be okay. The disease does appear to be at least stable, where the number of people who are contracting it daily is rather constant. It's not going up like it was a few weeks ago, and it's not going down. So I think a lot can be done to reduce a lot of anxiety in the community if some of that reasoning is shared. And I would especially appeal to, the county and the work that they do, and appeal to, the healthcare folks if they can talk about that. I've got one last point on this, and that is there's growing information about aerosolization as potential transport of the disease. And I've had some EPA podcasts and things that I've shared with folks. And there are recommendations about how air filtration and increasing the amount of airflow in buildings and so on can help a lot with that. I know there's some language with that in the plan. It might be helpful to maybe expand on that a little bit more. But otherwise, I think it's a really solid plan. We've got options. People have choices, and all of that means a lot to people. So I just want to thank you all.
So we appreciate your questions and understand them as well. The Allegheny County Health Department Director and the Chief Epidemiologist are asked those identical questions from the 42 superintendents in Allegheny County every Tuesday or Thursday, or, and they're working to, again, provide the best possible guidance they can. The layer that also exists is the Pennsylvania Department of Health. And so in addition to the CDC and the Allegheny County, we have the layer that is the Pennsylvania Department of Health to consider. Your point on data and information is excellent. The challenge is a challenge of communication. Information is abundant, peer-reviewed, empirical information is less, but evolving daily. And what we have attempted to do, and our Healthcare Leadership Council experts share examples of empirical research and study with us. We post some of those to our COVID-19 website, but it is a challenge. It's a challenge with change as the constant. So we 100% hear and understand. Mr. Zimmerman's here, our Director of Facilities, and he's been working with Tower Engineering, and we've been working on, talking about, learning about, and taking action on HVAC-related things and ventilation-related things since really for the past 2 months as that has evolved. We have Mrs. McAndrew, I believe, she is the manager at STA that oversees transportation. So physical distancing on the bus, the cracking of windows on the bus in order to increase ventilation, those are things that are a part of the discussion and planning as well. So we're with you, and we will continue. If you notice, the updates to the plan, the health and safety plan were noted in red. That will turn black. We will add new changes, and we will continue to try to lift that up so it's as clear as possible.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
I just want to add a few things and add a question also. First of all, I think the plan's come a long way, and we've done some really great work developing it at every level across the board. It gives people options, and I just want to reiterate some of the things you said earlier in case people are tuning in late, that approving the plan doesn't mean the decision's made. The decision gets made closer to the start of school, what portion of the continuum we're operating in, and that right now the conditions are favorable for a hybrid model according to Allegheny County, and we have a hybrid model that we're approving as a mode of operation. We also have an online model that we're developing that could be function as fully online. So students who don't want to come back or families that don't want to send their kids back can be online in the fall, and if necessary, we have to go to all online. And that also means that the community needs to be ready in case we do have to go all online to prepare for that eventuality. We can't guarantee that we will be able to have their kids in school. We can't guarantee that, we don't know what's going to happen. So there's a lot of uncertainty there. And I think the model provides a lot of flexibility. So approving the model doesn't mean, yes, everyone's going to be in school on day one, or half the school is going to be there on day one. That's where we're trending right now, but that could change as the data develops. So I think that flexibility, is important to recognize and understand with the model, that it's day by day and week by week. And I think we've been very good at responding to that. And I want to thank all the staff that have also weighed in about their concerns and shared their, we've got a lot of emails from teachers at Pine-Richland, and want to thank them for sharing those concerns with the board to help us, in making our decisions. The one question I have is in the nature of the hybrid model. A lot of parents have asked me about why, our particular hybrid is, sort of ABA, where, 3 days a week, 2 days a week, because it puts an added burden on families to have an irregular schedule for childcare, for work scheduling and whatnot. What are the benefits of us going to this model where, we're alternating every other day, where a kid's in 3 days a week and then 2 days a week and 3 days a week, versus some of the other hybrid models that are like, 2 days, Wednesday off, and 2 days, for the other cohort, or maybe in every other Wednesday, so it's a 3-2, 3-2 that way. So, why would you like to expand?
And there's another model that you might hear with places going half day, half day.
Yes.
And so for us, the conversations that we had were really about the continuity of learning. This is a disruptive environment all around. And so how could we And I'll say first for staff, how do we create the environment for staff to protect their health as well? And what Mike demonstrated here using the footprint of this room is the physical distancing that this model provides. So trying to unpack it means unpacking all sorts of things. And we thought that from a continuity of learning perspective, never going more than a day without having that social, emotional, relational touch point with the teacher and the students in the class, what we believe will develop is a rhythm of that within the students who are there. So there'll be students at home, there'll be students in class, the rhythm of that movement, the regularity of being in the school environment will lead to increased engagement and performance. It comes at a flexibility, third key driver, impact. So I don't think there's a perfect option, but we believe that keeping students engaged with a degree of regularity, it will be new, it will feel different, and like most things with people and kids, once a routine begins to establish itself, people get comfortable, people begin to understand, and you move on to the next thing. So we think social emotionally there's a benefit, and academically there's a benefit as well.
Thank you.
From the standpoint of the amount of time that's been put into this, I don't know if people realize that most companies would spend all their time doing this and not being able to do anything else. This organization is running at such where not only have these plans been put together, reworked, reiterated, changed daily, but the administration has also been putting together a comprehensive plan for educating the students. And that's one thing that we can't lose sight of, is that is still the underlying thing on all of this, and the focus is never swayed from that. So obviously we've got to educate the kids safely, and that's part of this plan, but we still got to educate the children. And the administration has always had the eye on that ball. So having said that, no plan is perfect. I would bet that if every school board member or every member of the community was asked their exact opinion about this item or that item in the plan, there may not be 100% agreement. But the way that this organization functions, to hear all the voices, to take all the information and to decide on a final model or a final implementation, is what makes us a high-functioning organization. And again, if you parse it apart, you can find a place to nitpick anything. But the way that the approach was, everyone got to talk about it, everyone got a say in it, and the best fit for the most people was put in place. So having said that, I will support this this model. Again, people may not agree with it 100%, but no one's going to agree on everything 100% for this whole thing. One thing I do want to bring up is that even though this plan is put in place for ultimate safety, we cannot fool ourselves that there's not going to be a positive within the Pine-Richland community of students and or staff and or administration. It's going to happen. So we need to keep focused on that as well, that we're not saying that this plan is going to prevent, we're going to say that this plan is going to mitigate. And that just has to be a reality that everyone focuses on. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and because I could see this coming up very early in the school year, is that there will be some students through the hallways or classrooms that may not have a face covering. And per the face covering mandate, there are exemptions to this. And I bring this up because I happen to have a daughter who would be exempted from this because of her medical condition. And one thing that I want to make sure is clear is that the folks that may not be wearing a mask may have an underlying condition that you may have no idea about. And in some kids, like my daughter, it's very clear to see that she has some challenges that don't prevent her from being a healthy individual, but would prevent her from wearing a mask. In other folks, we may not be able to see it. It's kind of like when you go to the store and you might see somebody that parks in a handicapped spot for whatever reason. You don't know what their condition is. What I would hate to see, especially in the realm of some things that have gone on in society of late and discriminations, that we don't mask shame, shun the individuals who may not be able to wear a mask for whatever reason, because that's going to draw attention to something that they may have zero control over in their lives. So I just want to be cognizant of that's going to happen. It's probably going to be a question that's going to come up early in the school year, that somebody's going to say, somebody that sits 12 feet away from my child wasn't wearing a mask, why didn't you make them wear a mask? So these are just things that we all need to be cognizant of, that these are realities that are going to happen. And again, nothing's perfect, but this plan is solid. This plan puts the kids back where I believe they belong. It puts our teachers in the best environment to educate our students, and I'm going to be happy to support it.
Thank you, Mr. DiTullio, and just to share a couple of things with what you said. So face coverings, cloth face coverings, if you will, are recommended as the sort of the best approach to that part of this process. You know what, Mike, you want to hit cancel on that board within the next 43 to 1 seconds. Okay, so
40 seconds to spare.
so there's pretty clear direction there. So if at all possible, in the most cases, we want that. If that doesn't work, then it's possible a face shield would work. And someone who may have the inability to wear a cloth face mask may be able to wear a face shield. And we would want that to happen if it could happen, because it protects the eyes, and if it goes below the chin, it offers some benefit. Again, the researchers are researching that all of the time, and so more information comes out. And as you said, there may be cases where someone can't, and we should absolutely treat that individual with respect, and we should also be working with families to talk about it, so to understand it, not in an accusatory way, but just in a way to make sure that we are on the same page. 100% agree, and we have to manage expectations. We have had COVID positive instances, and we will have COVID positive instances of students and staff. I mean, it will happen. It can't not happen. It is a part of the transmission of the disease. And so the question, back to Dr. Mihalik's point, is what happens when, and how many does it take to do what, and how does that work? And so the answer to those pieces at this time is we work directly with Allegheny County Health Department. We share exactly what's going on. They ask us questions in the contact tracing protocol to understand what's happening. So if a phone call happens and the question is around close contacts, and we have information about more than 6 feet and how that works, that's information given to the case manager, which then impacts decisions. But it is absolutely likely that in any school district in the United States of America that has in-person instruction in any form, there are going to be cases of confirmed positive. And that means that a student would be isolated or a staff member would be isolated. Confirmed positive may or may not lead to hospitalization. It may or may not lead to other types of support. It means that those deemed close contacts would be put in quarantine for approximately 14 days to monitor conditions. It means that we might have a spouse in a household who is confirmed positive, and they have 3 children. One at primary school, one at a middle school, and one at the high school. And all 3 of those children are close contacts of that parent. And as a result of the parents confirmed positive, we have 3 students who might otherwise be in schools but who would be in quarantine. This is what we're looking at. And so we will work to communicate, we will work to protect privacy, we will work with Allegheny County in order to ensure that the right conversations are happening with the right people, and we will push to ensure that that happens in the best time frame we can possibly control. But that's the reality. And so the model that we're presenting is a model designed to understand that. The reduced number allows physical distancing. With masks and with hygiene procedures and ventilation and all the other things, we're putting ourselves in the best possible position to be able to manage that. The attention on the blue, so for us, the blue bar is not a point of conversation in a whole lot of places. In a whole lot of places, the conversation is about the green and the yellow. We think that the blue will actually have the greatest impact on learning and the school environment, because it's that area that students may be moving into and out of, or a staff member may be moving into and out of. It is fully possible, and Dr. Pasquinelli said that a staff member who is unable to be at work, not because they're sick, but because they're quarantined, and they may be able, through their device at home, to plan and deliver instruction to the students who are in school and to other students who are in the yellow or the blue, depending on the age level we're talking about. We'll have to put another adult in the room to manage procedures, but that's part of flexibility. So, Mr. DiTullio, excellent point, and there's so much to this that we have contemplated, and there's so much to this that we can't contemplate until you live it and understand it and begin working through it. So, but it's all hands on deck to try to work through that.
Any other discussion at all?
I just want to, thank everyone, Mrs. Carla, for the time and effort they put into this, and I'm seeing this on lots of different levels, and there is no easy answer. And I think one of the things that I'm impressed with is the nimbleness of our plan. And I agree with Dr. Mihaly that, we do have to figure out, what our numbers are, what our procedures are, and how we do things. But I've been impressed how thoughtfully this has been done. I've seen lots of different examples that haven't been done as thoughtfully. So thank you. Also, I urge parents to go, for students who can wear masks, we want that protection for the students who can't, for the ones who really cannot wear the mask. So, having that expectation set at home from parents is really important. I was actually having a conversation with one of my high school friends who has a 3-year-old daughter, and she's in a daycare. And they live outside, they're in Northern Virginia. She is expected to wear a mask and a face shield all day, every day when she's in daycare, and she does it because that's what's expected and that's the routine. They make a big deal about picking the mask out in the morning, they get excited about it, and so, it's about our expectations as adults, what we expect of the children, and how we support that. And there are, like, Mr. Tullio talked about, people who cannot do it, but we have to be thoughtful so we protect them. So if we can, we have to be willing to do it, and we have to be willing to make the right choices and set the right examples so we can protect those who can't. And that's really important. I just want to say, I appreciate all the work that goes into it. I echo what Dr. Campbell said. We need to continue to monitor this. This is we're talking about what the plan is, what our options are, but I'm very impressed with the thoughtfulness and how this is being handled. And so I will support the plan. And I'm done.
Any further discussion? Ms. Williams, can we do a voice vote, please?
Of course. Mr. DiTullio?
Yes.
Dr. Mihalik?
Yes.
Mrs. Swope?
Yes.
Mrs. Misbach?
Yes.
Mr. Kashani?
Yes.
Dr. Meyer?
Yes.
Dr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Moy?
Yes.
Yes?
Thank you.
Yes?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Right, thank you.
Yes, we can.
We heard you, Dr. Meyer.
Mrs. Williams, you are muted on our end on the video, so.
Sorry.
It's okay, your 3 votes are recorded.
Dr. Meyer loves this plan.
I'm very enthusiastic.
Okay. So motion passes.
I think just from your yeses, it was passed.
Okay. Item 2.03 is a motion to approve the revised PRS Pine-Richland School District Health and Safety Plan for Athletics and Activities Model as attached.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just a brief update here. We shared Phase 1 with you in the past in terms of athletics and activities. This plan has been modified based upon updated information from, again, the sources we've been talking about. Those updates are provided in red so you can see where those changes are within the document. Our focus now is Phase 2. If you recall, there are 3 phases to this plan. Phase 1 was conditioning. Phase 2 is heat acclimatization for football and tryouts and practice for the other fall sports. And then Phase 3 would be competition. We are still holding in terms of Phase 3. You know, there has been some additional guidelines you can attach to this motion is the PIAA, some information. WPIAL has shared some modifications to some of the competition schedules. So we are treading slowly with Phase 3. This is a focus on Phase 2. Because of the modifications of the competition schedules, it really allows some of that Phase 1 type of conditioning to continue and ease into Phase 2. So we are working closely with our coaches and our sponsors. Mrs. Bowman is here. She's working closely with, for example, band and what does band and band camp look like and sound like. We've been talking about that, looking at through the lens of this document. And of course, Mr. Simmons continues to work with his coaches, just varsity sports, thinking about Phase 2 transition for practices and tryouts. So as we get closer again, we'll bring this forward again with modifications as we start thinking about where we are with competition as we get into that 3rd phase.
I will add that I have a son who is a sophomore on the football team, and so I've been able to witness our model in action, and I'm very proud of the coaches and the players for taking this very seriously and see the benefit of them just getting out and working out under such weird conditions, but they understand why they need to do it. And so I'm proud of them. I'm proud of us for having the model, and I think that it is just I want to offer that testimony because it's one thing to hear the model described, it's one thing to wonder how it's going to be executed, but the first glimpse of anything that we've created has been the athletic model, and I've seen it, and I'm very pleased.
One more item, just as a reminder, just like we did after Phase 1 was approved, Phase 2 just means now it's turned over to the coaches and sponsors, and they will look very critically through the lens of their sport or their activity to determine how to best make sure that we're keeping kids healthy and safe. And our phrase is, don't just get them back, but keep them back. So then those will be then sent to either Mrs. Bowman or one of the building principals or Mr. Simmons for review. And they ultimately will look at those plans against this plan, which is kind of the umbrella, and then approve that. And then that information will be communicated with each of the groups of students and families.
Now, I've heard that the band has made the decision to go online with band camp. Is that,
We've asked, they have started to look at this plan and make some recommendations. We asked them to hold tight until this was approved tonight before they communicate anything out, but knowing that we have over 250 students that participate in marching band, knowing that at this point, competition information is saying that there will be no spectators, that we believe there's opportunities for our band students to engage in some type of learning activities over the summer. Obviously, it's going to be very different compared to what they've experienced in the past, but we've got some high-energy teachers that are excited about some opportunities. We'll share that with them if and when this is approved, and then we'll get those band-specific guidelines out.
I'll add a couple of details that are a part of all this. So in Allegheny County, July 17th, there was an order signed, an order that limits gatherings in non-instructional spaces. So an example would be a gymnasium for Mr. Simmons. The number is 25 total present. And for outdoor gatherings in Allegheny County, through that order, the number is 50. So that is, as Dr. Pasquinelli said, that impacts different activities in different ways, and then causes the group to need to go back and relook at it. We've also been informed that if there were a positive case with a student athlete or in an activity like this, then that group, that team, would have a period of quarantine of 14 days. And so if we play that forward, and depending on, again, where we are, that has significant ramifications in continuity and just what the whole fall looks like. So again, that information also evolves. Every bit of information we have seems to evolve day to day and week to week, but that's information Mr. Simmons continues to monitor as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
Good.
I will say, though, the worst part of working out on a hot, dry Richland Santa Cruz field with a mask on, it's not running and working, it's going into the porta-john on a 90-degree day. That's according to my son. So that's the worst part.
Thank you for sharing that.
I'm smiling.
Yeah. Good side.
Any
So-
further discussion?
I just want to say, like, I originally voted against the reopening plan because of the lack of development in Phase 2 and Phase 3. I agree with Phase 1, and seeing how Phase 1 has been rolled out and accomplished has given me confidence to, support this going forward as a, supporting the full Phase 2, Phase 3 in the vote tonight. Seeing, the limitations put on us by Allegheny County and the state, adhering to those, seeing how the teams have responded, and seeing how Mr. Simmons has guided the process and the principals have guided the process. I'm very pleased with seeing how that's played out over the past month. So thank you to everyone involved in keeping our students safe that way.
Ms. Williams, can we do a voice vote, please?
Yes. Mrs. Swope?
Yes.
Sorry. Mrs. Misbach?
Yes.
Dr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. DiTullio?
Yes.
Mr. Kashani?
Yes.
Dr. Meyer?
Yes.
Dr. Mihalik?
Yes.
Mr. Moy?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Item 2.04 is a motion to permit the enactment of the temporary provisions as set forth in Section 520.1 of the Pennsylvania School Code.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Yes.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Item 2.05 is a motion to approve personnel and supplementals as attached.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 2.06 is a motion to approve the 2020-2021 independent contractors working through psych services as attached.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Item 2.07 is a motion to approve the purchase of 3 PTZ broadcast cameras, and 1 control keyboard from B&H Photo for $8,397 as attached.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Finance, Mr. Kashani.
Okay, item 3.01 is an informational item that on August 17th in that board meeting, we will be approving some financial reports and some accounts payables. And then 3.02 is a simple reminder that there will not be any budget transfers until the October meeting. 'Cause
Thank you.
we would be violating code if we did. And that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Kashani. So buildings and grounds, I'll take that, Greg. And it's just, I'll pass it over to Mr. Zimmerman for an update on the summer project.
Sure.
Gotcha.
All right, thank you, everybody. I'm Jeff Zimmerman with the Facilities Department. Just wanted to hit some of the key projects that we're working on this summer, give you a progress update and some expectations for the last couple weeks before we start up the school year. So some big wins that we had, start off with the Richland windows. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to take a look at the Richland Elementary windows. They were completed during the month of June, just finished up on July the 8th. So those windows, I mean, they look great. They give us additional security with that new bronze gray tint on the windows that really look great as well. And so the security aspect of that is that you can't see the students unless you walk right up against the window within 1 or 2 feet now, which gives us a nice degree of security there. Also, energy efficiency has gone up by 3 times with those new windows, so those are going to serve us well. The stadium turf finished up last Thursday, and we had some actual teams practice today out there. The turf turned out terrific. The colors look great. The vendor did a really nice job with that one, so we anticipate that Field 6 will be a very similar project, same vendor, same turf, same material, so really looking forward to that for Field 6. So what we can expect for Field 6 is, you probably saw when you drove in, there's a lot of earthwork still going on down there. The large retaining wall is pretty much completed now. It goes from 10 feet all the way up to 20 feet at its tallest point. So they'll have all the earthwork done this week. They'll be bringing in rock and then turf after that, putting in the final 2 electric poles for the lighting. And we think that we're right on schedule for a finish date at the end of September, 1st of October timeframe, and we'll try to get ahead of schedule if we can. Some other projects, you saw the roof when you came in as well. Right now we have about half of the roof metal that's been torn off, and we have some that's being replaced. By the end of the week after next, so in about 2 weeks, we're going to have half of the metal replaced on the roof that we had awarded during the contract. After that is done, we're going to work around making sure that we're not noisy for the students and see if we can get some more done into the fall. If not, we'll start back up again in the spring and finish that project in 2021. We are doing the flat roof that is above the cafeteria atrium. That will be finished in 2 weeks. So that represents 80% of the flat roof that was going to be done for the project as well. So we feel that we've made a good amount of progress. The team has worked about 45 days with the COVID precautions and with the contract being signed and everything. So we didn't get a full summer worth of work, but we got about 45 days so far. We have about 3 weeks left, so we're going to get as much done as we can before the kids return. And everything will be buttoned up before the winter hits. Some other projects that we're going to finish up in the last few weeks before the kids come back. There'll be 10 rooms at the high school, which will be carpeted in the old A wing. Those have been painted, new LED lights. So there'll be a nice refresh for 10 of the rooms. We're going to use that as a prototype for going into the next couple years and trying to upgrade some of the older areas of the high school. Wexford Elementary is getting the new main lobby in the vestibule refloored. That's going to happen starting on Wednesday of this week. And then we have some paving jobs happening over at Hants Elementary. So some little projects that we're trying to button up that were approved during the June 22nd meeting. Those materials were ordered, so we're getting all those things taken care of. If there are any questions, I can answer them later, or if you want to take a look at the progress sheet that's located in the board docs to kind of explain where everything else is and timing. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Any discussion at all? Okay, so we'll move on. Dr. Meyer, I'll take it for you, Carla. Academic achievement. Dr. Pasquinelli, would you like to update?
Yes, thank you. So this is an update related to Keystone exams. Most probably recall that in the spring of this past year, the federal government, U.S. Department of Education, approved Pennsylvania's request to waive the requirement for assessments in the spring. So any student that was in a Keystone course, that's algebra, biology, and literature, 9th grade, they're considered, we're using the terminology, trigger course. So if you're in that course last year, typically that would have triggered you take the Keystone exam at the end of that course. With waiving that requirement, those students obviously didn't have a chance to take the Keystone exam, and that last quarter of learning was very different than anyone has experienced in the past. So as a result, Pennsylvania is allowing any student that's in one of those trigger courses or was in one of those trigger courses last year, the family can opt out of the Keystone exam. Typically, a family can opt out for religious reasons. With this guidance that we have now, that if family decides they do not want their child participating, again, this is only for children that were in that trigger course during the 1920 school year, they can opt out. Schools are responsible to provide opportunities for all students to assess, so we will offer that. The typical summer assessment was moved to September, so our window is around September 28th. It will be offered to all the students that were in that trigger course last year, and it will be offered to any student that did not score at the proficient level when they took it in prior years. That's going to be early on in the school year. So that kind of takes care of the state and federal guidelines. Pine-Richland has a graduation requirement that says that students must score at the proficiency level in all three of those courses, or take an alternative assessment, or through their IEP goals. We are making a recommendation to waive that graduation requirement for the students that were in the trigger course last year that were in Algebra 1 and Biology. The justification for those two courses is students leave Algebra 1 and most typically they move into a geometry course. Students that are in biology most typically leave that course and go to chemistry. So knowing that there's a significant shift in content, and in the addition of not having that fourth 9 weeks last year, we believe it's appropriate to waive that graduation requirement for those particular students. We also feel it's appropriate to hold on to the graduation requirement for literature. And the justification for that is students typically take the Literature Keystone exam at the end of 9th grade. They are moving now into 10th grade English, so they will have a full year of 10th grade English before they would have to take the Keystone exam for the first time. They can choose to take the makeup if they would like to in September, but they will have another full year of learning and then have an opportunity to take that assessment that would then be tied to a graduation requirement at the end of their 10th grade year. So wanted to provide the board with that informational item, get any feedback, if you have any feedback regarding Keystone recommendations. If we do not get any feedback, or if you're comfortable with our recommendations, then we will need to get some communications out to our families so they can know what to expect coming into the school year next year.
Any discussion at all? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pasquinelli. Student Services, Dr. Campbell.
Yes, we have two information items for consideration at our next regular meeting. The first one is 6.01. We'll have a motion to approve the Glade Run Day Student Education Services Agreement for the school year as attached. And the other information item is 6.02, which again, at the next meeting, we'll have a motion to approve the 2020-2021 agreement between our school district and the MHY Family Services as attached. And those are a lot of as-needed services that we contract.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Staff Services, Dr. Mihalik.
Thank you. Item 7.01 is an information item that there will be a motion to approve personnel, supplemental, and transportation items at the regular board meeting. I don't know if you want to expound upon that.
I do not, but I do want to use it as an opportunity to recognize Colleen McAndrew. So you see her on the screen. STA provides her transportation services, and providing the coursework, the required coursework, at this time is difficult. Drivers, as you know, tend to be a population of people who are at risk relative to COVID. And so ensuring that we're providing the best environment on the bus, but also to deliver a program and training with assessments. And so I had the opportunity with Mrs. McAndrew and with with Kevin Barnhart, her colleague, to see all of the curriculum materials, the instructional delivery methods, to do a fully virtual training that meets the guidelines in the state. They're one of the first to create that company-wide. And it's really impressive to see the manner with which they are showing agility, and I wanted to recognize Colleen since she's on the call. So thank you.
Item 7.02 is a temporary, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I apologize. Thank you, Dr. Miller, for the recognition.
Okay. Thanks. So item 7.02, information item, that there will be a motion to authorize the superintendent and director of human resources to hire staff as necessary after August 17th, 2019, to be formally approved by the Board of School Directors at the September 14th, 2020 school board meeting. Item 7.03 is an information item that there will be a motion to approve one stipend in the amount of $1,561 for the sponsor of the Cy Girls Club beginning in the 2020-2021 school year. Item 7.04 is an information item that there will be a motion to approve two stipends of $811 for the sponsors of the Gay Straight Alliance Club for the 2020-2021 school year. And item 7.05 is related to tenure, and mine does not have an attachment here.
It'll be there for the regular meeting. Yeah.
Okay, so it's information that tenure will be recognized at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mihalik. See, there are no items under operational services, and there is no board business. So, Dr. Miller, do you have any other?
Just a quick mention of A.W. Beatty. So A.W. Beatty Career Center, we have students who participate in that program. The challenge at A.W. Beatty is a hands-on curriculum in almost all cases, with so many sending schools, all of whom are wrestling with the same challenges in terms of reopening plans that we talked about tonight. So we do have a game plan for the students. Beatty has a game plan for how to support students, and to the greatest extent possible, students will receive, experiences and training, but it's definitely going to be one of those flexible kind of things. Did I take your thunder?
No.
Okay, good.
No, there may be a question.
Oh, okay. So anyway, just so people know, A.W. Beatty is a part of the planning process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've seen the plan for Beatty, like the revised plan, so they're also recommending the hybrid, and they keeping the school districts together because there's 9 school districts. So I believe Pine-Richland will be Thursday, Friday schedule, so there will be some accommodation with the scheduling to make sure that those students who are in person at school that they will be transported to Beatty. And we also asked for clarification about the classroom sizes. What was their average planned optimal classroom size? But it's still in the making. And we haven't seen the full health and safety plan yet.
Are you going to ask Mr. Heasley for a podcast, narrated podcast?
They did say that it was out with the committee right now, the health and safety plan, so the board is not seeing that, the detail at this point. But I guess the question was that, you've been in contact with Beatty?
Yeah, to the extent, we know their preliminary plans, I mean, we're aware of the sort of the game plan, but there's so many moving parts that I'm not sure we have all the details. So we'll work to support the kids.
Right.
It's really, again, my guess is, it's like case by case. We have students who drive, we have some who need transported, and the sun and moon and stars are all moving in different directions, so we're going to have to figure it out as we get closer to that point.
Yeah. I'll just add, I mean, that is part of the beauty of our recommendation for our model, is following the student's academic day, regardless if they're virtual or face-to-face. That allows them to participate at Beatty, whether they're an AM student, a PM student, a Thursday, Friday student at Beatty, or whatever they determine. So that flexibility is built in, allow our Beatty students to continue to participate.
Great, thank you. Okay, so now we also have a second recognition of any member of the Pine-Richland community may address the board. Please state your name and your address, and if you would please keep your comments to a minimum of 3 minutes.
Yes, we have 3 people who would like to speak. The first one is Matthew Imhoff. Mr. Stobener? Hello? Mr. Imhoff?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, you can go ahead and speak to the board, please.
Hello. First off, my name is Matt Imhoff. I have a soon-to-be senior and sophomore at the high school coming in. My address is 9811 Presidential Drive in McCandless. I do not live in the district. My children go to school in the district, and I am the assistant head track and field coach for Pine-Richland. First off, I wanted to say thank you to everybody for all their hard work that you have put in. I cannot imagine the amount of stress and feedback and input that you have all received from parents like myself, from teachers and students, and from watching, I've viewed the entire thing, and you guys have done an exemplary job. The few things that I did want to comment on are my kids will be going 100% virtual. Their mom and myself, along with the 2 boys, decided that they are not comfortable with the current plan. And part of it, I think, is because I don't think we've seen everything yet. We have seen the basic template. The things that we're most concerned about are compliance and enforcement of the rules that you have come up with, and making sure that on a day-to-day basis in the classroom that those things are being adhered to. Cleaning protocols, things like that. One of the board members earlier mentioned the alternative schedule of the AA, day off, BB schedule. The one thing I haven't seen is how is the building going to be maintained during this process to make sure that it stays safe and clean as we are moving a 400-person cohort out on Monday and bringing in a 400-person cohort in on Tuesday, and then alternating every day. I wish that we would have been able to, as a parent, see the plan in place behind the scenes to be able to understand the rationale of that plan, because to us it just doesn't make sense the way it's been presented so far. And maybe there's stuff that would have changed our mind if we had seen more. The other couple concerns we have are electives and science labs and band and those types of classes that are going to require things that we do not have at home. And how is that going to impact our children's schedule? Are they going to have to change their schedule this year from what they originally registered for to something else because they are not going to be able to participate at the level they need to, being a 100% virtual student? And then the last thing, and I will probably not be the favorite person in the room with this, is with the sports. I think that everybody wants their kids to participate. My son's in band and he's in track, he wants to participate. But And adding that element of interscholastic competition with other districts and expanding the bubble further beyond our own homes and then our own Pine-Richland district and the days that we would have been in the class really opens up the possibility of negative effects, and it serves to undermine all the hard work that you have put in planning to keep the kids safe within the building. And I'm a coach, I want to coach, I want to see the seasons happen, but at where things are at now, I personally think it's misguided, unfortunately, and I really hope that it doesn't come back to cause a problem. During the time period that this meeting has been going on, Ambridge School District canceled all their extracurricular and interscholastic activities for the fall, and it was noted that it was for that reason. They feared the interaction with other districts and expanding the bubble beyond just the school building itself. And they don't want to undermine the practices that they have put in place and the mitigation standards they put in place within the building by exposing the kids to things that are beyond their control. We all want everybody to follow the rules and be as safe as we can, but I think at least at first, a more stepped approach might make a little bit more sense. Again, I do appreciate everything that you've done and the hard work that you put in, and I really hope the kids are going to be able to have a safe and healthy academic year. And I look forward to seeing more information come out in the coming days. Thank you all for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Imhoff. Someone from the administration will be back with you to answer any of your specific questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Our second speaker is Mr. Irwin. Hello? Mr. Irwin?
Hi.
Go ahead.
Can you all hear me okay?
We can. Go ahead and address the board.
Awesome. First, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody for your efforts to provide a safe and effective educational experience for all of our kids. My questions are specific to the K-3 hybrid model. I think the gentleman that preceded me got through part of this, but I'll just say it anyway. So thus far, it's kind of felt like all of the parent-sourced information has been just a three-horse race, all virtual, hybrid, or all in person. As a parent who wants a hybrid model to limit exposure, it appears to me that we missed an opportunity to discuss the different types of hybrid models. As we heard a couple times throughout the meeting tonight, it'll be really difficult for parents to manage an alternating schedule. Monday this week, not Monday the following week. That is going to be hard, specifically for anybody who has, a regular 9 to 5 or an alternating schedule. Another thing, I would love clarification on the everyday students. Will they be in the same classrooms with the hybrid students? Because if that's the case, it doesn't really seem like I'm getting the limited exposure that we're hoping for with a hybrid model. It just appears like by the end of the first week, everybody ultimately would have been exposed in some way to somebody else. The A kids are in the same class with the everyday kids on Monday, and then Tuesday, the B kids are in the same class with the everyday kids. So by the end of the week, it all kind of meshes out. And then finally, I would agree, I think interscholastic sports should be limited to in-house only. I think going outside the district just adds, additional risk and probably not worth it. That's all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Irwin. Someone from the district will be back with you to answer your specific questions.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And our final speaker is Jamie Morgan.
Probably answered one.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi,
Can you hear me?
Yes, Mrs. Morgan, go ahead and you can address the board now.
Hi, sure. I just have a couple of clarifying questions. Just first of all, thanks all for your efforts in the survey and having data-driven decisions here. just kind of to piggyback on what the gentleman before had said, just in terms of having a set schedule, if there were Monday, Tuesday kids, Wednesday, Thursday kids, and every Friday was virtual, something like that, I think would be most helpful for childcare and planning. Not sure if that's yet been decided or something that will be in the survey that comes out. So just that piece. A few other things I've heard from other school boards that the teachers' unions are not thrilled with the teachers going back, and I was just not sure if there's been any pushback from the unions. I don't know if you're able to address that at this time, but that's one thing I've not yet heard in terms of Pine-Richland, if that's been an issue. In addition to, I have a couple concerns on the bus without the social distance, wondering if it's been considered to have additional routes. I know the AD solution may help that with less to the bus, but just some concerns in terms of the kids wearing masks, and I've seen them on the bus. They're not able to keep their hands off of each other most times. And then two clarifying questions. One was, will the classroom model that was demonstrated with in-person by, I think it was Mike, is that going to be for all levels of education, K through 12, or if that was just the older students? And then one other question was if the virtual model will have the same schedule as the school model. For example, if class starts at 9:15, the virtual class would start at 9:15. So that was one other clarifying question I had.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. We want someone from the administration. We'll get back with you on your specific questions.
If I could, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody who's here tonight. So with those who are online and those who are here, you're seeing members of the Healthcare Leadership Council with different roles, and even if they didn't speak actively tonight, just please know how much they're invested in the work that's happening between the meetings. So thanks for being here and listening. I do feel good that because of the way we work, almost anybody in this room could have answered almost any question about the plan because of the collaboration that happens, and that's important when it comes to execution.
Okay, I guess we're done. So I'd like to adjourn this meeting. Gotcha, you're welcome.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.